everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and animal welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. Joining me today is Debbie Bauer. Debbie is a holistic behavior and wellness coach, and she is internationally recognized as a blind and deaf dog expert. Thank you so much for joining me today, Debbie. I really appreciate it. How are you?
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Good. I'm so glad to hear it. So, I am so interested in your journey as a blind and deaf dog expert, how you work with those animals. But before we kind of talk about the how, let's talk about the when and the why. So, tell me about when you started your journey in dog training and specifically with blind and deaf dogs.
I've always sort of been interested in dogs. I'm the one who, when I was very young, my parents would go to a friend's house and I just kind of had to hang out while they talked, right? But if they had a dog, you could always find me wherever the dog was. And trying to teach them how to shake hands, right? Or roll over or something fun. So it's always kind of been an interest of mine. But when I became a teenager, I had a dog that had some behavior problems. And I really had a hard time finding help with that. Back then it was, you have a problem with your dog, you just take them to obedience class and it's sort of supposed to solve everything and make it better. And it really didn't for my dog. And so I started reading. We didn't have internet back then. And so I just kind of started diving into everything I could get my hands on and just sort of got bitten by the training bug. I really got interested in it and the science of learning and all of those really kind of cool, geeky things. And then when I started my professional career with dogs about 35 years ago, I had the opportunity to work for the summer for a breeder, a show dog breeder. And they had a couple different breeds. One of the breeds that they had was rough collies. And I remember showing up. It was just a summer seasonal job to help them with dog care. And I remember showing up and being handed a stack of bowls, dog food bowls, and said, go into this pen with probably, I don't remember now, but at least a dozen adolescent collies. It was feeding time, and I took the bowls and I went in, and of course you can imagine the chaos, right? All the dogs
Right.
barking and jumping, and they had told me, go in and put the first bowl down and start walking around the perimeter of the fence. And every so many feet, put down another bowl. So I did, and as I put each bowl down, one dog would stay and eat, and the rest would follow me. And I'd been told when you get to the end and you put down the last bowl, there will be a white dog there next to you, and you need to stand there while she eats and make sure nobody takes her food because she's blind and deaf.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my introduction. And I remember it didn't really register with me while I was in there putting all the bowls down because I was trying not to drop dog food bowls everywhere. But when I got to the last dog and I put the bowl down and I looked at her, it hit me that she followed me all the way around with all the other dogs. She jumped on me. She barked. I would never have known had they not told me that she
Mhm.
couldn't see or hear. And so that dog, her name was Lady, that dog started in me kind of this fascination. And so over the summer that I was there, every time I had a break, a lunch, anything, she came out of the pen with me. And I taught her how to walk on a leash and do stairs and be groomed. And I taught her to jump over a jump and to fetch a ball and do all the things that like normal dogs might do. nobody told me she couldn't learn them. And I was just, young and having fun with the dog. At the end of the summer, I offered to buy her because I'd fallen in love with her, and I
Mhm.
figured, well, this was probably a fluke and they'd be thrilled to have her in a good home.
Mhm.
But they said no. They told me that when she was old enough, they were going to have surgery done on her eyes so that they appeared normal. Not that she'd be able to see, but so that they would appear normal to other people, and they were going to use her for breeding. And of course, my heart broke because I loved her, right? I wanted to take her home with me.
Right, that's also,
But
like, wildly disingenuous.
I also, in that moment, realized this was not really a fluke. There was more going on than what I was being led to believe. And
Mhm.
for many, many years after that, I did as much research as I could. Um, we weren't really into the internet stage then, and so it
Mhm.
was hard to find answers. But basically, when you have two dogs that have Merle color pattern, which is like the mottled look where you have gray,
Mhm.
black, white, some
Mhm.
brown, like all kind of splotchy.
Right.
And a lot of people really like Merle. It's kind of a flashy color.
Mhm.
You have two dogs with that coloring and you breed them together. Very often, then you get these dogs, these puppies being born with visual and hearing challenges. So it's completely preventable. But there's kind of this uh, underground almost in the breeder in the breeder world. And some
Mhm.
breeders do this, and they do this either intentionally or they just don't care. And then they get rid of the puppies in ways that we don't need to talk about right now. But
No. I think
but
there's
that's
enough
kind of
going on in the world today that we don't need to, be any more, obvious with the heartbreaking part of it, right?
exactly.
So but, I mean, I am the whole it's funny because the whole breeder thing is a thing that I know that at some point in the journey of this podcast, I'm gonna butt right up against, right? And I'm not sure yet how I'm gonna explore that, but part of where this comes from and this concern comes from about, do I talk to a breeder? What does that look like? How do I want the conversation to go? Who do I even pick to talk to? Is because I'm very worried about the fact that this exists, this dark side of it really exists. But that aside, I'm so interested in how the color of a dog can relate to being blind and deaf, because I do remember that my first introduction to a deaf dog was a friend of mine has a deaf pit bull, and he's just like the sweetest. He's a senior now, but he's the sweetest dog ever. And he's brown. And I remember somebody else going, "Oh, like, I'm so surprised." And you just raised your eyebrows. "I'm so surprised he's not all white." And I didn't realize that was a thing, but it can be a really big leading indicator of deafness, right? I guess blind too, or no?
It's kind of a myth that all white dogs are going to be deaf. That's not a truth.
Right.
And some people think, oh, if the ear is white, that means that the ear is deaf, but that's not really true either. So
Okay.
what we see on the outside is not usually an indicator. However, when we get into Merle to Merle breeding, or we get into breeding dogs that have excessive white on them, we can run into problems um, with deafness in particular, because when the puppy is developing, they need pigment in order for the nervous system around the vision and the hearing and all of that. Like, they need some pigment for that to develop normally. So if there's not enough pigment, then we run into they're not going to develop properly and have the full range of the senses. I'm not a scientist. This is very basic kind of explanation, but it's actually the inside of the ear that we can't see that is what determines that. So
Mhm.
there are some breeds where we do sort of see a correlation between white and deafness. Maybe a little bit with vision, although that's usually a Merle to Merle thing.
Okay.
If we're gonna see a white dog that has hearing and vision issues. But we can have a dog of any color or any age, right? That's the thing is they
Mhm.
might be born this way, but there's all kinds of conditions during a dog's life where they might lose their hearing or lose their vision either suddenly
Mhm.
or gradually. So we're seeing in rescues, in shelters, we're seeing a lot of dogs that have some of these challenges
Mhm.
for any number of reasons. It might be infection, it might be genetics, it might be a trauma, it might be
Mhm.
age. There's all kinds of reasons why.
So when you are approaching deaf and blind dog training, how do you approach that different, or do you approach that different at all? I guess I'm assuming that it's different than if you're approaching um, I don't know, I hate the word normal is so terrible. I don't like that, but like a seeing and a hearing dog. We'll just say a standard dog. How about that? We'll go with standard. Makes me
Okay.
feel a little more comfortable. So, how do you approach that differently, assuming that you do?
I think there's a couple things that are really different. One, of course, is your communication,
Mhm,
right? So if a dog is blind and can hear, you can still use verbal. You can still
mhm,
talk to them with words. Um, but if they can't hear and they can't, if they're blind and deaf also, like you have to adjust your communication.
mhm.
So that's probably the biggest difference, I would say. The next thing is we have to think about how do they perceive their world? Because with a blind dog, they don't know you're reaching to pick them up,
Mhm.
that you're reaching to pet them, or that you're reaching to put their leash on their harness, right? They miss out on those sort of cues that we with most dogs that are sighted, we just take for granted, right?
Right, right.
So we need to think about what is this particular dog's perception of their world and how can we adapt that so that they feel safe and they know kind of what's going to happen, what's coming. But most of the training piece of it, yes, there are some adaptations, but we still need the same things like definitely positive reinforcement teaching. We need consistency, we need, practice, we need safety, we need boundaries, we need kind of all of the same things when it comes to training, I think.
So, how would you, if you do have somebody who is dealing with maybe a dog that is going blind, right? And I just think of like age. I think of cataracts. Like we had a lot of, I've had older dogs where you start to see that kind of fog or like the blue in the eyes, like how my glasses look right now in the reflection of the computer. But or, a condition of some kind, where they're starting to go blind and they are perceiving their world differently. Or you might have a situation in which a shelter or a rescue or a foster takes in a dog that maybe even was born blind and now has to establish trust with that animal. How do you help that animal start to maybe get different cues? Like when you are approaching for the leash or you are going to pick the dog up to make the dog put the dog in a better situation. What does that look like?
I tell people talk to them. If they can hear, use that and talk to them about everything.
Mhm,
I'm going to put your leash on now before you do it.
mhm,
Or I'm going to brush you. Or is it okay if I pick you up? I'm going to touch
mhm.
your ear. And these are just things that in the beginning, are they going to know what you're saying? Not necessarily, but with some repetition, just like our
Mhm.
dogs learn what walk means or park means or,
Right.
treat means, they learn pretty quickly as
Right.
long as you're consistent. But it can be hard for us as the human to learn these new ways of communicating because we're very kind of like verbal and if we can see, we just take for granted. We're
Right.
walking down the street with my blind dog and there's a fire hydrant and my dog's just going to walk around it, right? No. And so we have to learn to kind of be their guide person, right? We have to learn to help them with different cues. Stop and wait, step up, step down if there's a curb, um, go around, come closer, and sometimes we may even need to use the leash and kind of help them so that they're not running into different things along the walk. And that can take some practice, but it becomes more natural the more you do it. But
And what
letting them
about
know
a
what's
oh,
coming.
sorry. I interrupted you. Sorry.
I think there's a little lag on the recording. No, go
That's
ahead.
okay. So I was just saying, like, that makes sense to me, assuming you have a hearing dog, you know, talking to the dog, approaching the dog, eventually the dog is gonna get familiar with your routine, your patterns. What about a deaf dog? How do you kind of, because what we did with Snowball at the end of his life, our Shih Tzu, we just like, if he was sleeping, we were always scared that if we touched him, we were gonna scare the living crap out of him, and he was gonna, rise up as if he's, like, being called from the dead. So,
Yeah,
we always would just I would just, like, kinda put my hand just sort of in front of his nose and be like, "Are you gonna smell me?" Or that I would just, like, really gently touch him or just, like, apply a bit of pressure to his bed where he was sleeping just to be, like, real gentle about it, but he could not hear at all hardly by the end.
I do the same. So, one of my favorite things is to blow on them gently. And especially if it's a dog that does have a little longer hair, right? Their hair is going to blow a little, or you
Mhm,
kind of blow towards their ear and you'll see it twitch. And then
mhm.
their eyes kind of open, like, oh. But we do want to be mindful that so with a dog that's deaf, if they can see, we need to make sure that if we're communicating with them, that we're in their line of vision. Because
Mhm,
obviously, if they are facing one direction and we're directly behind them trying to communicate with them,
mhm,
not super helpful. Um, but we also want to lessen the startle response if we can.
mhm.
And this is also for blind dogs because they're going to be touched or bumped when they didn't see it coming. We can't get rid of a startle. Like we
Mhm.
all startle. It's a natural thing. Something surprises us and we go, huh, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between are we startled and we come up swinging because we're anticipating something bad is going to happen? Or do we startle and then we're like, okay, it just surprised me. Everything's fine. And we can help the dogs to anticipate that something good is going to happen. So anytime anything unexpected happens, feed a treat. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
do happen to wake them up and they go, whoa, here's a treat, you know.
Right.
Um, if you walk in the room and, they kind of go, oh, didn't know you were there. Here's a treat. And one of the things I love to do is just touch your dog and give a treat.
Mhm,
Just touch your dog and give a treat. And at first, you're going to do that while they're aware of you and they kind of know that you're doing this thing, this weird thing where you touch them and give them a treat. But after a little while, can you touch them unexpectedly and as they turn, give them the treat.
Uh-huh.
And it's just I think it's a nicer experience for the dog if they do get startled. I don't like to be startled. I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
like to be startled, but, it makes your heart race
I
and,
don't I don't
"Ooh."
mind it, but my husband will straight up consider divorce anytime I scare him, either on purpose or not on purpose. He is just not here for it. So, I get it.
Yeah,
I live with an easily startled. So, I guess my question then too is how do you train a blind and deaf dog? Because you don't have any physical, or at least it seems like you don't have any physical um cues that you can depend on. So that's gotta be really challenging. I mean, do you do a lot more touch in that scenario? Like, are you training, like, certain touches mean certain things? Like, how does that work?
exactly. So, we can touch them gently on different places of their body or in different ways. So, there's a touch that's a touch. There's a touch that's a slide. There might be a touch that's just a little tap. So we can teach that these different touches mean different things.
Mhm,
My blind and deaf dogs, I live with 2 of them, and I can give them a sign that we're going in the car to get a bath, right? And
mhm,
so we're going in the car to go to the chiropractor. And I've had to build up to this,
mhm,
but now I can put 2 different touch cues together to kinda make little sentences for them.
mhm.
So we're just limited, I think, by our creativity.
I mean, that's fair. And consistency probably too, because it's a lot of work to train a standard dog, let alone one that's impaired in some way. It's a lot more effort. It's a lot more work. Do you think that, I mean, in your experience, have you seen that impaired dogs get surrendered because of their impairment?
I have.
That sucks.
Um, yeah. The thing about deafness, if your puppy can see and you go and you bring home a puppy, you may not realize that your puppy is deaf for several weeks.
Hmm.
I've had people contact me who have had their puppy for 8 months.
Hmm.
They've been frustrated because he won't listen to this and he won't listen to that. And I've taken him to puppy class and he still
Hmm.
won't come when he's called. And oh, that's why the puppy's deaf and you need to communicate with them in a different way. But sometimes the puppies don't get that far, right? They get to their little adolescence is starting, the puppy cuteness
Right.
has faded away, and they have this puppy that, they just don't know how to communicate with. One of my dogs, Grace, came to me that way. She was a deaf Sheltie, and the person had she I guess she figured out along the way that she was deaf, but she'd gone to a breeder. She'd gotten her from the breeder, got her as a puppy. And as Grace got older, of course, there was no communication, so she couldn't ask her to stop doing something and come to her, or, she just didn't know how to approach communication. And so Grace just got wilder and wilder and
Hmm.
was having the time of her life. But she also spent more and more time in a crate
Hmm.
because the person who had her was just, she loved
Frustrated.
her, he cared for her, but she just couldn't handle an 11-month-old puppy that had no training. And so we do see that. We do see the frustration
Hmm.
and the challenge sometimes is too much. Um Sometimes I see it with dogs with a visual impairment. Um, we can see reactivity starting to develop. So behaviors like growling, lunging on the leash, barking, because even if a dog has some vision, if it's not standard, to use your term, if it's not standard vision, things don't look right. And so
Right,
you might have a hard time understanding your world. And
right.
so all of the same kinds of visual challenges that a human might have, having a blind spot or having depth perception things or not being able to see very well in bright light, like dogs can have all of those things too.
Uh-huh.
And so if that's not diagnosed properly, and if the person doesn't know how to approach things to help their dog to feel safe, we can see some of these other challenging behaviors as well. And some people are just overwhelmed, just in general.
People are yeah, right. I mean, people are overwhelmed with dogs that don't have impairments. I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, that's part of the reason that I wanted to talk to you, and because this is not a dog specific podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about animal welfare, but I think if we're not talking about the fact that, if you have a dog that's a challenge or a pet that's a challenge, and you're not taking steps to like try to overcome that, it's going to end up back in that system that is already so flooded and so overwhelmed. I do have a question though, because one of the pieces of advice that I had given my friend like years ago, when Ollie was like young, and rambunctious, and deaf, was, well, why don't you get, and I don't believe in shock collars, but most, if not all of them, have a vibration setting. And I said, "Why don't you get one of those where it'll just vibrate, not hurt him, and then he'll start to learn that that means that you want his attention. So he wants to like turn and find you because you obviously don't have the ability to like yell or call or make a clicker sound or whatever." I mean, is that something that was terrible advice and just I should never give advice ever again? Or did it have some validity to it?
I think that a lot of people mean well when they recommend vibration collars.
Okay.
I don't use them,
Okay.
and I don't recommend them.
Fair
And
enough.
I have seen the fallout from them. Some
Okay.
people some people use them and seem to have success. Many people, by the time they contact me, they've tried a collar because somebody told them, "You have a deaf dog, you need to get a vibration collar,"
Mhm.
either with no results, as in they say, he you know, he ignores it, it doesn't work, whatever, or that it's caused some kind of anxiety.
Oh, okay.
And so because it's not something that's necessary, I don't recommend or use them. Now um, I will say that this means that we just like just like any of our dogs, right? Just like any dogs that can hear, it's our responsibility to keep them safe.
Mhm.
So a lot of people feel really badly. Oh, I can't let my deaf dog off the leash. Well, that's not true, but there's a lot of dogs who can hear who shouldn't be off the leash as
Amen to
well.
that.
So I always say we have to think about the dog in front of us. We have to think about the environment. Is it safe? Have we taken the time to teach the dog the skills that they need? And this includes deaf dogs. They can learn to come to a signal. Um, and do we have the bandwidth that day to really be paying attention? Or do we just want to let our dog off leash to go run around so we can be on our phone? Right. So
Right.
the conditions always have to be right. And there's
Mhm.
a whole lot of dogs who can hear who have do not have a reliable recall coming when called.
Right.
So when
Right.
we compare that to, "Oh, I can't let my deaf dog run around because he won't come when I call him," all my deaf dogs have had a really nice recall, but we have to take
How?
the time to teach it, right?
It's
So,
wild to me. Like, how do you teach? I mean, if their back is to you, they could be like the best dog in the world. If they don't hear you, they don't hear you.
here's my secret. Are you ready?
Spill.
So, I teach what's called an automatic check-in, and this
Okay.
means that without my prompting, right? I'm not waving or doing a silly dance or dropping treats. Without me prompting them, I want my dog at specific intervals to turn and check in with me, to see what I'm doing. And the way I teach it is anytime my dog pays attention to me, they get their thumbs up and they get a treat. And
Yeah.
pretty soon they're following me around like,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be forever, right? So in the beginning, anytime they look at me, I try to reward it because I want that skill. It's a safety skill. If my dog gets out of the house, I want to know that before they get down to the street, they're going to turn and look at me to see, hey, what's going on?
Right.
So is it foolproof? No. Dogs are
Uh-huh.
living beings, right? And that's why I said we have to be careful. They don't understand our world and traffic and all of those things. So we do have to be careful, but behaviors that we reward tend to happen more. So if we don't take those check-ins, those times that our dog naturally kind of looks at us,
Uh-huh.
if we don't take those for granted and we actually reward them, then you have a dog that my deaf dog, Owen, I could take out on a trail and he could be out in front of me. And I knew that probably every, I don't know, 15, 20 feet, he was just going to glance at me.
Uh-huh.
That glance gave me a chance to then signal him to come or signal him to wait while I caught up with him or signal him that we were turning in a certain direction. So that's my secret.
Love that. That's awesome. Because I mean, we are working with our difficult foster, reactive foster right now, and um, he is he's reactive on leash, and so we're working right now with the when his attention comes back to us. We reward it, and we're doing it for a little bit different reasons, but not entirely different because we have done some off leash work with him. Like there's a trail near us that is kind of like in and out. So there's not like a bunch of different trails coming down, feeding into this path where you can kind of have a lot of different uncertain points. And if there's nobody there and there's a foot of snow on the ground, like there has been, then we let the dogs run because there's not really anywhere for them to go. But then we've been working on the recall, calling him back, rewarding when he checks in, all that good stuff. So I mean, those are skills that are great for any dog, but I love that for a deaf dog, just that ability to, reward that check-in and then it just becomes a habit.
It
That's
does, and you
awesome.
can build on it. I'm also a huge fan of long lines. I
Yeah.
think that having your dog on a harness and a long line in areas that are safe, it lets them have freedom and it still lets you
Have control.
be in control if something happens,
Yeah.
right? So I I I mean, it doesn't matter how much training my dogs have had. I utilize long lines all the time.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So what would you tell somebody who is maybe in a volunteer space and they're having to work with a blind or deaf dog, or they're considering fostering one who's maybe not doing great in the shelter environment but they're nervous about it, or maybe someone who recently adopted a dog and finds out that it's blind or deaf? What's some of the first, most basic advice that you would give that person?
Set up safety. I mean, this is for any dog, right? Any dog that we bring into our home is gonna need some decompression time, and it's gonna need some understanding and some learning to trust us and, all of those things. And with a dog that has a sensory difference, we have to maybe do that a little differently. So some of the things that I talked about today, be sure that you speak to a blind dog before you touch them. If it's a blind and deaf dog, can you do something to let them know that you're there? Blow on them, for instance, before you reach in and do something.
Mhm.
Um, Deaf dogs, try not to startle them. Safety is, we all need safety,
Right,
and they're not going to be able to learn if they don't feel safe.
right, right. I think that's really true for any of us, not just our pets and not just our dogs. So you had mentioned to me that you have some fosters right now that you think you could talk about when it comes to the foster spotlight. So tell me a little bit about who you have.
Well, I'm not personally fostering these two dogs,
Okay, I must have misunderstood. I apologize.
but one of the things that I do, Kelly, is I love to work with rescues and shelters and foster homes who have dogs that have either a visual or a hearing challenge to help them become ready for adoption, so that we teach them the different communication, whatever communication style they need. We set them up with skills so that when they go to a new home, those things can be transferred to their forever home to make it a better transition. And then once I've worked with that dog in that rescue or shelter setting, I do a lot of it virtually. Um, then I offer to the new family a free session as they are adopting the dog and bringing it in so that we can try to make this successful, right? Because not every attempt at an adoption um, ends in success. And we don't want dogs kind of, tossed around a lot. So
Right, if we
right
can
now,
avoid it.
yes. So right now I have some notes here to make sure I get the
Okay.
information right. But I'm working with two lovely double merle dogs, Australian Shepherds. And this is the merle to merle breeding result. We call them double merles.
Okay.
Both of the dogs are with Aussie Rescue of the Mid-Atlantic.
I'm going to
So
pull up the website.
awesome.
Found it here, and I'm going to share it because, as I have said the last couple episodes, we are now on YouTube. So, the benefit of taking in this podcast on YouTube is that you will get to see pictures of cute
Hey.
dogs.
So you can probably find Poe.
Okay, let me find Poe here, and then I will
Poe
share my
is
screen.
okay.
Oh,
Poe,
go
I'll
ahead.
talk
Tell
while
me
you're
all
doing
about
that.
it. Yeah, please.
Okay. So Poe is about 2 years old. He's about 50 pounds. Average, maybe a little tall, Aussie size. He is deaf. He can see. Um, as far as we know, he can see just fine, but he is deaf. And oh, there he is.
Yeah, so I am.
Isn't he cute?
He is beautiful. I am pulling this up right now. It is loading. So you said he's about 2 years old. He is deaf. Um, I don't know why
His
it's taking
foster
so long to load. Go ahead. There he
his
is.
foster home has other dogs, so he's living with other dogs. They have introduced him to cats briefly, and that seemed to go well. But
Great.
obviously, people who have cats at home will need to be, ready for a slower transition just to make sure everybody's okay with each other.
Yeah.
But they've been taking him on hikes and to breweries, and he loves to ride in the car. So he's a dog that needs a little bit of time to build trust with his family, but he really enjoys being a part of something, right? He likes to be doing things with his family. And so the rescue has said that they think he needs a more experienced forever home that either has a lot of dog experience or just has experience with having a young, energetic, you know, kind of dog who needs some
mean,
training and some
yeah, I mean, he's an Australian Shepherd. Like, that's a whole case in and of itself of like dog that needs exercise and enrichment in order to not drive itself and its family insane. So,
yeah.
on top of that, you add the fact that it does have a hear, is deaf and is impaired in some way. Yeah, this dog is going to need somebody that is going to be really committed to making sure that it's in the best and most, structured situation possible. But he is just beautiful. Do you know how he came about to the rescue? I mean, obviously, he's a double Merle. So do you guys have his background?
He was a stray that was brought into the shelter and nobody claimed him. So there's not a whole lot of information. He came in as a stray with this other dog that I'm going to talk about, Emmy.
Well, so I
Um,
have a question then. So how do you know he's double Merle then? Like, what indicators are you seeing that tell you that?
well, he without doing genetic testing, like we can't tell 100%, but he's mostly white. He does have the hearing impairment.
Mhm.
Um, so those are really good indicators.
Okay. So there's a very real possibility that some backyard breeder just dumped him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't really know.
Right.
But
Right. Well,
he is looking for, a home that's gonna make him a part of the family and, go do fun things with him. And he is working right now on greeting new people who come to the house in a little bit more um, calmer way.
it's great though. That's
So
awesome. I mean, again, Australian Shepherds are a challenge anyway. So, yeah, that's amazing that he's showing improvement. He's responding to the training, I assume.
yes, yes, his
That's
foster home
awesome.
has really made a lot of progress with him, and
That's
they're
great.
very committed to him. They're really. Do I have time to talk about Emmy also or not?
Yeah, I had a feeling that's who you were going to talk about because I saw another white one on the same website.
Yes,
And I was like, oh, it's probably going to be Emmy. So let me share Emmy as well. And again, if you're following along on YouTube, you get to see cute dogs. And if you're not following along on YouTube, if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I am going to put the links for both of these dogs' profiles in the show notes. So go ahead and tell me
perfect.
about Emmy. Oh, she's beautiful.
She is beautiful. One of the things I want to mention real quick is that we didn't
Hmm.
cover is that just because a dog is blind or deaf or both, they still have all of the same needs for enrichment and exercise and training, and they have the same urges, right? Like a herding dog
Hmm.
still has the urge to herd, um, even though they don't have those senses. So sometimes we have to be a little creative with the enrichment that we give them. But
Right.
Emmy is also about 2 years old. She's smaller. She's about 30 pounds. And she's deaf and mostly blind. We
Okay.
think that she can see shadows. We
Okay.
think that's the extent of it. So light,
Okay.
light and dark contrast, shadows, movement of shadows or light. And so this has been a real challenge for her because she doesn't always know what's going on in her world, and it's made her a little bit anxious. So when she
Hmm.
sees a shadow or something moving, right, we're really working to help her understand that those things are safe. So
Yeah.
we're really
Yeah.
working hard with her on routine. consistency and giving her ways, different touches, different cues in her environment that we can have set up for her that kind of help her feel like, okay, everything's safe, right? So she's going to need a little bit calmer of a home, adult
Uh-huh.
only home.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
As much as we love children, they are fast and they are unpredictable. And neither of those things, I don't think Emmy would feel safe with
That's
those.
I mean, that's fair. That's completely fair. Children bring chaos. And a lot of times it's wonderful chaos, but it's chaos nonetheless.
Yes. And Emmy prefers no chaos. Her foster home has been amazing with her, and she's really bonded, in particular to one person in the household that's kind of her main caretaker, likes to sit in her lap, follows her around the house. They say that she likes to ride in the car. She loves to be outside and be playing. She's been around cats. Um, and she has some dogs that come and visit. So her foster home does like some in-home kind of dog daycare type things. And
Mhm.
Emmy has made some real friends there that she
Well,
will
that's
run around
awesome.
in the yard and play with them. But she's gonna need someone who's got time and patience to give to her and has an environment that's, not changing a whole lot. Like, you have kind of a calmer
Fair.
home, stable, she can have her routine so that once she realizes she's there, she's safe, there's not going to be a whole lot of unexpected, coming at her.
I mean, I think it's totally fair to say not every home is a fit for every dog. And I love the transparency of that because I mean, that's reality. And I love that. So, as a reminder, Emmy and Poe are both with Aussie Rescue of the Mid Atlantic, and they're in the Alexandria area in Virginia, right? And they are up for adoption. And as Deb said, if you were to choose to adopt either of them, she will be coming along with one free session as part of your adoption contract. But if you are not somebody who is considering utilizing Deb through an adoption contract, Deb, how can people otherwise get in touch with you?
So my website is yourinnerdog.com and I have a blog there. So even if you're just curious and interested about working with or living with dogs that have a visual or a hearing challenge, go check it out. You can
That's
always email me
awesome.
from the website. I'm always happy to answer questions. And if you are involved with a dog that's in a rescue or a shelter or you're fostering, and either you know that they have a challenge or maybe you suspect it, I'm always happy to jump on a call with you too and just kind of help you get things set up so that you can be a little more successful with them.
I love that. I love that. There are a lot of people who volunteer with different organizations who are listening, and it's great to know that you're such a knowledgeable resource that is available to them.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there are other dogs, out there besides Poe and Emmy. Of course, I'd love you to go look at them too, but you
Mhm.
might be surprised. There might be more dogs than you think that are visually or hearing impaired that are near you. So
Yeah,
don't be afraid
yeah.
to go check them out, learn more about them. Um, they might be the right fit for you.
Yeah, you might find that it's just like the best dog you've ever come across. I've said this before. I don't think I've ever said it on the podcast, but everybody thinks they have the best dog in the world, and everybody is right. I love that. Like they're all just the best.
They
Well,
are.
I want to thank you so much for your time today. I mean, just learning about sort of these intricacies and difficult cases and how people can navigate that in the rescue world is just it's so important for us to kind of stay on top of helping as many dogs and as many animals as we possibly can, no matter the challenges that come across. So I really appreciate your time and your expertise today. If there was any one thing that you wanted to leave people with, what would that be?
Their dogs first. Look past the disability, look, they all have the same needs that any other dog has. And no, it's not right for every home, but I think most homes could be right for a dog with a challenge. So don't be afraid of it. There's a lot of resources out there to help you, and it might be just the best thing you've ever done. They can teach us so
Man,
much, so
I
much.
love that. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And for anybody listening that has an idea of somebody like Deb that I should be talking to, you can contact me through my email at thefosterfilespodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Foster Files Podcast. Check us out on YouTube now and anywhere you get your podcast. But again, Deb, I really just thank you so much for your time today. You're really a true reminder of how the first part and just leading with acceptance and leading with love is going to be so critical to success in any relationship between an owner and their dog.
And thank you for all you do. This is really, it's a wonderful podcast to bring light to why we do what we do, right?
I appreciate it so much. Well, thank you again. And everybody, please remember to be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals. Have a great day.